I like to consider myself a man of refined taste, but really, I'm just a damn normie. Oh, that's a super cool and unique concept you got there. No matter what mood I'm in, I always got time to watch the 14th generic shonen they've put out this season. So naturally, that will lead me to watching the most popular ones too, like Demon Slayer. I was only mere minutes into the first episode before knowing I'd be hooked. And I stayed hooked all the way through. Demon Slayer Season 1 was such an enjoyable experience, but definitely not perfect. Despite the absolutely amazing animation, I was able to crank my brain enough to have an actual opinion. While I loved the animation, soundtrack, and world, there were plenty of things I wasn't a fan of. The show starts off pretty slow, the premise itself isn't anything crazy, and certain characters made me question if watching on mute was a better alternative. But even so, I still left Season 1 satisfied. But then, they released the Mugen Train arc. Oh, so now you're telling me on top of God tier animation and sound design, we're also going to have a good story with great characters? The Mugen Train arc, and I'm talking specifically about the movie here, was exactly what I wanted. The story felt more cohesive, the fights were bigger and better in every way, the raw emotion, and Zenitsu was asleep for like 75% of it, so that's big dubs all around. There were still a few things I didn't like, Sausage Train Man was incredibly lame, and the fact that Tanjiro just let this fucking conductor stab him with a Phillips screwdriver or whatever I found frankly to be pretty stupid. But overall, I loved it. There's perhaps a bit of bias there, as Rengoku is my favorite Hashira, but I was genuinely questioning how Ufotable would be able to follow up something this great. Their response? The Entertainment District arc. A new journey for our trio, a new Hashira accompanying them, and new demons to fight. But how would it hold up against the previous seasons? Yeah, still pretty fucking good. This new season of Demon Slayer takes place after the events of Mugen Train, but skips ahead roughly 4 months before we start to get into any new content. We meet our new Hashira who, in a different world, under different circumstances, would probably have been arrested. Tengen Uzui, the flashy sound Hashira, has a mission that requires a female corpse member, so naturally our 3 main characters who are all males end up going instead. The destination? The Entertainment District. The mission? Go undercover to research demons and discover the whereabouts of Tengen's 3 wives. Tanjiro and wait, did I just read that right? For once, I'm gonna agree with you, Zenitsu. This is some bullshit. Man's got 3 wives, and I have trouble even talking to women.
This is my wife. This is my other wife. This is my mistress.
Tanjiro and Nosuke and Zenitsu infiltrate the courtesan houses with completely accurate and believable disguises, and the investigation begins. However, it isn't long before we start to get that demon fucketry. Turns out a lot of the girls from the houses are committing something known as Ashinuke, basically cutting their ties from the house and abandoning their debts. But yeah, we all know that's not the truth. They aren't leaving, but instead being abducted by a demon. An upper rank demon. You can probably tell where this is going, but now the gang has a very strong adversary ahead of them. I'll admit, I was a bit skeptical at first for the season. Hearing the initial runtime of 11 episodes, I guess it's kind of 12 because the first is a double. I was very curious to see how the show handled the pacing and if they'd be able to tell a coherent story in that amount of time. Then you take the fact that the first episode is more so wrapping up the events of the Mugen Train, and we really only have 10 episodes at the Entertainment District. Surprisingly enough to me, this arc had the best pacing so far in the show. We didn't dilly-dally too much before the mission, and even once we got there, it was only like 2.5 episodes before shit starts to hit the fan. I'm all for getting right into the action, but because of this, I think this season has the weakest overall story. Sure, there's plenty of emotional moments and character growth, but the reasonings behind going to the district I found pretty bland comparatively to the rest of the show. And when you don't take time to establish the story, we're forced to sit through plenty of cutaways and flashbacks during fights that can be a bit annoying, but it doesn't mean it was bad. I think this season was more of a setup piece for what's to come, and I'll get to that a bit later. Although the story was the main weakness to me, the visuals and fight scenes definitely were not. Somehow, some way, the animators managed to step up their game even further, making this the most visually appealing season, even when compared to the movie. The scenery surrounding the Demon Corpse Hospital thingy and the entertainment district were on a whole nother level. Just look at these fucking trees!
That's pretty neat.
Or the lighting that warms the town and breathes life into it at night. No matter the environment, there's always something beautiful to look at. So yeah, safe to say the animators are still fucking cracked. But it was the fight scenes that truly left me speechless. You think I'd come to expect this with scenes like the Hinokami Kagura in episode 19 and Rengoku's ultimate move, but Ufotable still finds ways to amaze. Whereas in previous fights it felt that the breathing techniques stole the show, this one was 100% the choreography. Maybe that's because of Tengen's history as a shinobi, but we had way more sword fighting and hand-to-hand combat than in previous scenes. This can kinda be where shonens get a bit messy. Having all of these moves at blistering speed usually leads to a decrease in animation quality and characters become nothing more than just a blurb on the screen. Safe to say that is not the case here. We see all the moves thrown, the ones that hit, the ones that are blocked, and the ones that miss. No matter the speed or amount, it's somehow presented in a way that makes it easy to follow. We're moving literally at the speed of sound. Get it? But even all of the animation is discernible. And yeah, those moves are sick, but do you know what's sick? The camera angles. I can imagine the difficulty in animating a static fight scene, let alone ones as dynamic as in Demon Slayer. We're constantly rotating the camera mid-fight, shifting both horizontally and vertically and grabbing different perspectives. Two of my favorites were when Hinatsuru is on the rooftops and when Tengen is performing his final score against Gyutaro. The first one, although being short, shows a great display of proportions and distance. We're put in a first-person perspective and look down upon the battle ensuing. Each character is significantly smaller to give that perception of distance, but somehow we can still make out everything that's happening. Tanjiro defending against the belts and Tengen in his fight with the demon. The other scene, really don't need to explain it, it's fucking filthy, but there is so much going on here from just the camera. We have 360 rotations, zoom-ins and outs, additional perspective shots like from Tanjiro, and even times where the camera will almost pause to put emphasis on character movement. I'd almost feel bad calling this an animation masterclass because it feels even a level above that. From now on, I'm just gonna call it a Ufotable. So in summary, those fights were enough to create a flood in the Sahara Desert, but what about the content within the fights? We obviously had to have some story, otherwise it'd just be an even longer version of Fog Hill of 5 Elements. There were a lot of things I liked, and some that I didn't. I thought the transformation of Nezuko was pretty fucking nutty. She literally had the Mafia City glow up in a matter of seconds. Even though she couldn't control herself, the type of power she showed was really neat to see. Tanjiro's continued efforts to understand the Hinokami Kagura and implement it into his own breathing techniques was pretty sick, and I especially enjoyed his interaction with Seijuro. However, I will say that the show seems to be setting up this brother-sister duo to becoming overpowered as shit. I mean, Nezuko is already in terms of power and her ability to neutralize poison, but now Tanjiro might become a sun breather using the very first breathing technique, which to me seems like it's going to be quite strong. Besides them, I was kind of let down from some of the other characters. Tengen has a super cool aesthetic and I really enjoyed his fight scenes, but he paled in comparison to Rengoku. Like I mentioned before, maybe because it's his history as a shinobi, but it seemed like we didn't get to see all of his power. It was more so a lot of actual swordplay and the use of tools like bombs and kunai. I personally would have liked to see more breathing techniques, give him that Rengoku moment, especially now that we aren't going to see much more of him because he plans to just retire and fuck his wives. I mean, fuck off with his wives, but probably that first thing too. Inosuke again seems a bit underutilized, and I've kind of felt that way about him each season. He's yet to have that big moment for me where he grows his strength and just pops off. I thought this season would have been a good place because his beast breathing seems at least closely related to Tengen's sound breathing. But the thing that surprised me the most was Zenitsu. He actually wasn't the worst fucking character this season. No, that title is reserved for this bitch. No amount of booba you show me could make me want to listen to her cry and complain again. And while we're on the topic of her, what about her brother? Listen, I do not understand the demons sometimes. Plenty of chances to kill this clear threat to you, but instead they're like, I've sensed your unwavering loyalty and desire to eliminate demons. Why don't you become one instead?
I should have let you. What the fuck?
And then they let their guard down just enough, and they end up getting fucking bodied. You get it. At least Akaza was able to finish the job, but Gyutaro was a bit too confident. What was I even talking about again? Right, alright, Zenitsu, not actually dog shit. Nope, yep, I'm gonna say it. I think Zenitsu was the best character this arc. It always saddened me because I think Zenitsu has the coolest looking technique out of any characters we've seen so far, but the man can just be insufferable at points. And that's not even because of his voice, just more so how he's always scared and complains. Maybe I'm just used to characters who scream every sentence. I did watch the entirety of Black Clover. But why was Zenitsu good this season? I think Inosuke says it best.
お前ずっと寝てた方がいいんじゃねえか。
Memes aside, I do believe Zenitsu was great. He defended the little girls inside the courtesan houses, took a leadership role during a lot of the fights, and he was often directing the members or even saving them, and we got to see the Godspeed Thunderclap and Flash. He single-handedly set up the chance to behead Daki while Tanjiro and Tengen were busy with Gyutaro. I am hoping this will continue to be a trend because, believe it or not, Zenitsu can prove to be quite useful. I'm now going to circle back to what I said in the beginning, how this season served more as a stepping stone for what's to come. This is the first time in 100 years that an upper ranked demon has been defeated. We're basically being told that this generation of demon slayers is the real deal and can potentially defeat Muzan. We're about to see either a massive time skip or power spike, or maybe even both. Next time we see our cast, Tanjiro himself might be a Hashira or close to being it as hinted by Tengen, and I'm super excited for that. All the struggles and training we've seen so far is finally going to come to fruition and we'll see some OP shit on both sides. I think the entertainment arc was a great follow-up to Mugen Train, albeit lacking in story. But what did you think about the season? Do you think Demon Slayer is going strong or merely being held together by the strings of Ufotable's god tier animation? And quickly before we wrap up, guys, I want to tell you about Apex Gaming PCs. I have a partnership with them where I have my very own custom PC line that you can purchase from online. I actually have my custom PC here that I got a few weeks ago. Thing is an absolute beast. We're talking things like Ryzen R9s, 3080s, just stuff you can't get nowadays just due to price or part shortages. So if you're looking to get something very, very good and top of the line, definitely check out Apex Gaming PCs. You can use code Tony for 5% off as well. The link for that will be in the description. That's all I have for you this time. Hope to see you here again.